Joining us to discuss India's trade relationships is Dr. Amitendu Palit. He is a senior research fellow, National University of Singapore. Welcome to our show.
Thank you so much, Tony, and looking forward to chatting up with you on India-Canada.
Indeed. Let's take a broader look first, if you don't mind, and maybe give us a little bit of a sense. Obviously, COVID is not just a Canadian or North American phenomenon, it's a worldwide phenomenon. Can you give us a sense of how India coped economically with the pandemic outbreaks?
There were two parts to it, Tony. The first is that, as you very correctly mentioned, when we go back and see the way things unfolded from 2020, India was a bit remarkable, I thought, in terms of getting into a lockdown, which was fairly severe in character and pretty early on. From the end of March 2020, it almost completely shut down all activities within itself. And that, as expected, had a hit on the economy. And the numbers that came out at that point in time were quite shocking, if one could describe it that way, in the sense of the first quarter of the last year having experienced a contraction in growth of more than 20%, around 24%. So that was quite a steep fall southward. Then ultimately, as one moved into the latest financial year, what was seen was actually a bit unexpected. Firstly, India was hit by the second wave from the middle of March, and the wave was really severe. I mean, this was the Delta variant running amok. And there was a point in time when the number of daily infections in India were more than 400,000 per day. The number of casualties are very high. There were very serious systemic lapses that were taking place in all parts of the country. Hospitals were overwhelmed, fatalities were rising crazily. But very interestingly, what happened was, unlike the last year, India did not really go into a full closure. And that, I suppose, had two reasons behind it. The first was the fact that India did realize from last year itself that a full closure was not really its way of going ahead. It just wouldn't survive. The economy would completely collapse if there was a full closure to that extent. So it had to maintain the basic functions of the economy. And this time around, what happened was that, notwithstanding that very high wave, the central government actually came out with a series of very loose advices, generally guiding the states to follow the containment in the way they thought best suitable given their local conditions. And as a result of that, what we actually saw was the economy never really ceased functioning. There were demand setbacks, as was expected. The consumer sentiment dropped, the consumer demand dropped, but the production didn't get affected. And what we see now is that in the current year, the first quarter has actually produced quite a remarkable turnaround, though compared with the low base of the previous quarter,
right,
which, as I alluded to, had a very strong contraction. So this time we are experiencing a GDP growth rate of around 20%. Obviously, this is not what it is going to be for the rest of the year. But what is heartening is that the pace of vaccination is picking up very rapidly. It is, in fact, administering the largest numbers of vaccines to people as much as possible. There are two local vaccines which are now available for fairly widespread use across the country. Obviously, there are gaps. It's a big country. But given the fact that vaccination has come, along with a general maintenance of economic momentum, is a source of hope that finally this year will end with a much better growth number. It will not be possible to completely wipe out the loss suffered last year in terms of economic contraction. But some bits of it should definitely be recovered, and most estimates are pointing to the economy getting close to a double-digit growth, if not that.